Hey everybody, I want to thank all the new subscribers. Welcome aboard. And I want to make an announcement. On August 24th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be on the Typical Skeptic podcast with my friend Robert, and we're going to be talking about the NWO's war on starseeds, targeted individuals, psychic warfare, and the planetary consciousness simulation. So don't miss it. Anyway, this video here is going to be about extraterrestrial human hybrids, retroviruses, and we're going to take a look at the Anunnaki story in a completely different way. So this next clip that you're going to see is a clip of a Leap Project interview with Michael Lee Hill. Now, Michael Lee Hill is a contactee and a sky watcher that films UFOs. Now, he's got a very fascinating story, and I'm going to put a link to the video in this video's description for you to check out. In the clip that you're about to see, Michael Lee Hill explains how he was approached by the History Channel to be featured on a show called UFO Hunters in an episode called Sky Watchers. And this leads to him finding out that he is an extraterrestrial human hybrid. So check it out.
But so I guess getting into the Lake area UFOs, because the footage that I had filmed gained such kind of Billy Myers kind of buzz, that the History Channel, came knocking at my door, metaphorically, and asked me to be part of a show that was on Sky Watchers. And originally I was only going to have like 5 minutes on the show. Lake area was going to be one of the places they visited. But what happened was, right before they came to Cleveland to talk to me, they had interviewed another contactee in Washington, and he was a Marine, and his name was Terrell Copeland. And what they found was he filmed the exact same orbs of light I had the same message, spiritual message given to him, which is, be aware of what you're thinking about, because thoughts do create reality in every way possible. Quantum physics is telling that us now. So, but what happened was, since he was a Marine, they were getting ready to send him overseas, and they did a thorough blood work and medical test. They found out he had an unknown blood anomaly that none of the best military doctors in the world could figure out. And so he got a discharge, honorary discharge. But so the History Channel, being, I guess, smart, thought, what if these two guys had the same blood anomaly, being that they have such a similar story, but they live 500 miles apart, never had met one another? So they contacted me back and said, are you willing to go to Boston to have an update to your story? I'm like, all right, sure. But dude, I can tell you, if they would have told me I was going to have blood work and stuff done, I'm the biggest baby. I freaking hate needles. I don't want nothing to do with them. So I didn't know why I was even going. But when I got there, I found out it was to go and he's a Harvard professor named David Systrom. And so at the end of the show, like, yeah, you have this blood anomaly too. Your plane's waiting for you now. I was like, whoa, man, wait a minute. This isn't a TV show anymore. What the hell are you talking about? The guy was kind of a dick about it. He's like, well, what do you think unknown means? So after that, though, it's weird, because in that episode of UFO Hunters, it's called Alien Contact. You'll hear let me back up. You will hear Bill Burns say, I think that you guys are being given a course of study by a secret behind the scenes governmental group preparing you to meet your higher extraterrestrial selves. That's his own words, and it's in that episode. Well, that really happened. I met the head of the remote viewers, the head of reverse engineering for the NSA, who's actually working with extraterrestrials.
Hey, I had to inject myself into the video at this point. Remember what he just said. He talked about Bill Burns, who was the former, I think, editor or creator of UFO Magazine. It used to be a magazine that I used to purchase on the shelf back when we had magazines instead of virtual ones. Anyway, what I want to say is that, and this is a bit of a secret, there's a lot of people in the UFO community that have ties to the intelligence agencies. Whether these ties are good or bad really depends on how you look at it, if you have the information about the individual to scrutinize. But there's also something else going on here. You know, Bill Burns has said something to this man that leads me to believe that there's more to Bill than meets the eye. In fact, a lot of the researchers that are out there today, and even going all the way back to the beginning, most of which have been starseeds, some of which are aware of it, others are not. And there is a subconscious network of extraterrestrials that actually work with each and every one of us. And it's part of an 84-tier planetary social engineering hierarchy. And if you watch this entire interview with Michael Lee Hill, you're going to hear little bits and pieces of that if you know what you're looking for. So I'm going to let you guys get back to the video, and then I'll come back in a moment.
And so I even asked, the head of this was, his name was A.R. Borden. He's also known as 15 within the Wingmaker mythology. We can get into that. But how did Bill Burns know? You know, like I look back at that and go, wait a minute. And between us here, he said some stuff to me in my living room that just made no sense to me at that time, because in 2008, I hadn't met the Anunnaki, had no clue what even an Anunnaki was, because there was no ancient aliens on TV. You know, I'd never read a Sitchin book. I didn't know. So that ended up, just like Bill Burns predicted, being taken into this group. And, you know, it's interesting. I have this stuff, some of those notes I told you I just printed up. They're just everywhere, so it doesn't help much right now. He said, we want to give you a course of study into what he called cosmic harmonious frequencies. And he said to create matter out of light and sound, you need very specific frequencies. And they're Pythagorean tuned frequencies, which in layman's terms, it means your A is tuned to 432 and not 440. 440 is our musical standard that's apparent today in everything. And it's probably the least harmonious frequency you could pick. But if you just back it off 8 cents to 432, you align with cosmic frequency. We'll get into this of how 432 truly, it's tied in with the precessional cycle, hyperdimensional physics, how energy works and flows multidimensionally. Man, it's like, I'm really glad to be talking with you, because it's, you know, there's not a lot of cats I can have this conversation with.
Now he's referring to Rex Bear of the Leak Project, because that's where these clips are from. This interview was done about 2 years ago. And he's right, there's not many people you can have this type of conversation with, because they're simply not on the same level of awareness. The important thing to take from here is that he is going to start talking about meeting the Anunnaki and actually being part of the Anunnaki royal family. This is a very, very interesting discussion. But what I want to mention is, and this is a primer to understanding what you're going to see next, is that the story of the Sumerian clay tablets are being channeled by extraterrestrials, and people are being subconsciously programmed to go and seek this information out. The purpose of which is that this is used as a theological deprogramming tool by the extraterrestrial presence. This is the single most powerful social engineering tool that I've seen to date, that deprograms people and removes the theological programming of mainstream religions and replaces it with a foundational belief system that is primed and perfected for the Great Awakening. So what happens next with the starseed is, once they abandon their theological programming and it's replaced with the Anunnaki story, they can then be more open to embrace the extraterrestrial contact that usually happens next or has already taken place. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
But it gets into what the blood anomaly is, you know, that the History Channel found. And all of our bodies release an enzyme called creatine kinase. And the normal levels of creatine kinase in the blood are 25 parts per liter of blood. If you've ripped a muscle, or, you know, working out, or heart attack, whatever, It can jump up from 25 parts per liter of blood to about 250 to about 300 tops, because what happens is creatine kinase brings oxygen into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. So if you've had muscle damage, your brain releases extra creatine kinase. It creates extra oxygen. Oxygen, I found out, equates to how much prana you're holding at a cellular level, or chi, or life force, or midichlorians, or whatever that's called in Star Wars. I'm like, hey man, who? I think George Lucas might know something. But anyhow, so tops in someone that's had bodily damage is about 300 parts per liter of blood. And that is to bring extra oxygen, extra energy to the place that needs it. What they found in my blood was 2,100. And so if normal is 25, mine's at 2,100. But with all the medical testing, they couldn't find any medical reason why. And matter of fact, the Harvard professor said, if I had to just take a wild guess at why the brain is releasing these very massive amounts of creatine kinase, would be that it's some type of unknown virus, that viruses can work at the level of DNA. And he said, not all viruses are bad. It's just they are what they are.
All right, now we get to talk about retroviruses and hybrids. It's highly unlikely that Michael E. Hill's RNA was changed by a retrovirus, even though this is one of the primary ways that extraterrestrials can edit our DNA, edit the human genome remotely, and that's by the application of retroviruses. Retroviruses use what's called a viral phage, which looks like a geometric structure with a landing pod and a big hypodermic needle at the very end of it. What it does is it actually lands and then injects RNA into the cell's nucleus, altering the genetic code of the host. So this is one way that extraterrestrials have been, or actually one technique that ETs use to alter our genetic code remotely. The problem is when you're dealing with a virus is that you can't contain it properly. You could infect an entire population of people, say a tribe, for example, if they lived in an isolated place, such as the continent of Australia, or say, for example, an island. Now, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, which is more effective and more targeted, is to create human ET hybrids. Now, Michael E. Hill is a human ET hybrid, but if you look at him, he looks perfectly human, and he would be in every other way except he has this specific gene that allows him to heal faster than a normal person. And so did that military service member that he had mentioned that was in the UFO Hunters episode. And what you need to know is that they can create these hybrids in a variety of ways. The main one is to do an abduction and then to implant a fetus or change the DNA of the fetus either prior to birth or after. However it's done, I'm not exactly 100% certain, but what was told to me in a telepathic conversation about a year ago is that these hybrids are used to alter the human genome over time. So we're constantly receiving DNA upgrades on a regular basis, and we have for the entire human program, which to my knowledge has gone on for 1.9 million years. So anyway, that's what I had to say about hybrids. Let's get back to the video.
So it's all connected more so than it would seem. Oh, so the ACIO, the secret department of, the NSA people, they had 200 people that had this bloodline. Oh, no, 200 people in the ACIO. They said there was 12 people that had my bloodline. And my levels of 2,100 would have put me in about the middle of those 12, with the highest being 12,000, they told me. And that dude that had 12,000, pretty much they made it sound like he took a particle beam weapon hit directly and was able to get up and dust himself off. I heal fast, but I'm nowhere near that. But what's interesting is said many people might have this exact same bloodline. And because it is when I met the Anunnaki, they said, we want to talk to you about this blood anomaly released on the History Channel. It's truly an indicator that you're of our hybrid bloodline. And you see, they couldn't incarnate into the human form to come here and help, actually, Inky's side. And when they would try to incarnate into the human form, they had too much chi or prana or life force, and they would spontaneously combust. So they had to go back to the drawing board, the thinking tank, to say, well, what could be done? Because this goes back to what happened 27,000 years ago and the biblical flood. And then some of them wanted to help us. Other of the family went, no, they always give their energy and their I am away to illusionary outside sources. They always abuse themselves and each other and this planet. Why help them? Well, actually, I've learned very much. I understand that viewpoint now, actually. But you know what? I told them, don't judge humanity. You've had humanity's hands tied behind their back by an oppressive oil slavery banking system. And, if you keep torturing people, myself included, and putting us through the ringer, that doesn't bring out the best in anyone.
Okay, I need to give you a little bit of context as to what you're saying. He's now claiming to be on board a spacecraft with the Anunnaki, and he's accompanied by members of either military intelligence or the intelligence agencies. And he's a guest, and he's attending a conference, and he's having this interaction with extraterrestrials who are claiming to be members of the Anunnaki. And remember what I said earlier, is that the Anunnaki story is a belief system that is being used to deprogram starseeds, in this case Michael Hill. So he's having an experience that is enveloped in a theological facade. So here you have extraterrestrials claiming to be part of the Anunnaki, which is a theological story. And I also want to mention too, he talks about confronting one of them in regard to their attitude towards the human race, and he refers to an oppressive financial system. Well, I can tell you this, they have meddled so much in human affairs that the banking system is nothing compared to what they've done. They have literally created an augmented reality and have put starseeds and engineered lifetimes like a parasite to a host relationship with humankind. And they have literally engineered a battle between light and darkness right now. And we are in an end time scenario. So if you want to talk about having a moral compass or the lack thereof, when it comes to the extraterrestrials, they literally lack a moral compass. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Getting back to the meeting, they said, we were once known in your past as the Anunnaki. And they said, you were once known in the past as Inky, the water bearer. And if I didn't know what the Anunnaki was, I can tell you Inky, the water bearer, really made no sense whatsoever. And so they said, he was really upset. He said, what do you know about a gentleman that was on a radio show with a senior scientist from Lockheed Martin called Boyd Bushman? I said, I know everything about it. That was mine and David Sarita's film that we partnered on. And by the way, this senior scientist from Lockheed Martin, this is the guy that came out on his deathbed and released a lot of information, but someone had the cover story that there were only Kmart Halloween dolls. You know what I'm talking about? Look into Boyd Bushman. He made a huge deathbed confession, and they had a cover story immediately. This is probably around 2011 or 2012. So the story got squashed, but I can tell you this is in 2008, and this guy's like in front of me, didn't know it was Marduk yet. He said, I work for a group of people who control what gets released to the masses regarding the extraterrestrial or subject. And Boyd Bushman was not on the list. How could that have happened? And I looked him in the eye, or I said, I think it's bullshit that, this has been kept from mankind, unlimited free energy, right? That it's holding mankind back. And I don't agree with it. So I've dedicated all my energy into just letting mankind no, we're not alone. You know, to me, if I could think of one thing that could change this reality in a blink of an eye, so they say, it would be for mankind, without a shadow of a doubt, to know we're not alone. And then, so what they said was, Marduk was in his bad cop role, and there was a lot of death threats being thrown my way about the release of this Bushman information. And like I said, this is in 2008, long before his deathbed confession.
I just want to inject one thing. He brings up the Boyd Bushman interview, and that's a fascinating interview if you can find it. I'm sure it's probably or hopefully still available on YouTube. If I can find it, I'll make a video about it. What's important in that interview is that he talks about discovering, or that the federal government or some sort of black budget project had found a parallel neutrino universe. The neutrino universe that exists parallel to this one, or parallel to this multiverse, is the astral. It is what every piece of matter becomes. Those neutrinos are converted from unspecified conscious energy to matter. And the soul is also made out of neutrinos, just to let you know. So let's get back to the video.
They said his info was not on the list of things to be released. So how could that have happened? I said, I willed it into manifestation. You know, and he said, whoa, wait a minute. And he said, we need to know what you know. And he took a wand and it had a purple diode, and he pointed it right at my third eye, and I could feel it stimulate it. I heard from the NSA people that if they want to know what you know, there's a lot better methods than a lie detector test or, you know, whatever. This goes right into the Akash, and they can see every life you've ever lived, who you were and who you will be probably. And that's when everything changed. And he had a real attitude adjustment, which was really strange to me, because he went from really being really in his bad cop role. We'll just to once they did that, and he became really excited. He said, oh my God, we've been waiting for you to surface. We don't know how it is that you're here. We consider it a miracle, but now that you're here, we want to have a council meeting. And he became very submissive, and he had like tears in his eyes. I thought, what the hell's going on, you know? And the other one that was there walked up and put his arm around him and said, don't worry, my king, now you can finally rest.
Okay, what I need to tell you guys is that back in between 2005 and 2006, I was involved in an internet cult called the Joy of Satan. And what that was an Enki EA cult that was a composite religion that used Satanism as psychological camouflage to hide what was going on inside the actual group and the religious theology that it contained. And what I found was during that 7 months is that within the members of the group, and at that point there was about 8,000 people, is that about 80% of these people were told that they were pagan gods in a previous lifetime. The only god that wasn't represented in this way was the Enki EA character of the Sumerian clay tablet mythos. But every other god was represented, from Enlil to the full Anunnaki family, as well as the 72 Goetic demons of the Goetia, which were all pagan gods prior to the creation of Christianity and the adoption of it by the Roman Empire as the official state religion. So anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that there are many, many contactees out there that have been told that they are pagan gods from a previous lifetime, as well as Enki. Michael Lee Hale is not alone in this. I have a personal friend who's been told this. Well, actually, he wasn't told this. He actually used a specific type of technique that he refers to as gnosis, which is a means of going back and accessing your own past lifetimes. And he recovered a pretty substantial memory involving himself being part of the Anunnaki, which contained cognitive and emotional memories. He's also friends with other people that have had matching memories, and I believe they can even remember the same event taking place where they were there together. Now, you've got people like this, you've got people like Michael Lee Hill, and I don't know his background. Maybe he has cognitive and emotional memories that go along with this. But in his case, according to his description, he was simply told this. Now, I knew people in the Joy of Satan who didn't have memories as well, and they were told that they were members of the Anunnaki, some of which went through some very, very painful emotional and cognitive memory recall where they remembered being various different pagan gods. And what I've noticed is that every single person that is told this goes through a struggle afterward. It's a struggle with their ego and their personality. And I believe personally that this may very well be a type of personality test that you go through, that some people go through in this awakening process, because this didn't happen to me. I fell in the minority in the Joy of Satan. Instead of being told that I was a member of the Anunnaki or a previous pagan god in a past life, instead I was reunited with past life family members in the flesh, as well as those who came through telepathically. And so my experience was completely different than the average person in that group. The rest of them, with the exception of small numbers, were told that they were pagan gods. And in every case, like I just said, it blew up their ego and it caused a lot of problems. So the question really is that how can there be more than one Enki, or how can there be more than one Horus or Lilith? The question, well, the answer is that some of these have to be screen memories. They have to be false memories that are implanted into contactees for a type of, I guess you could call it social engineering purposes, or to maybe to exploit the person's psychological profile. I really don't know. I know that it is an integrated part of the awakening process for a certain segment of the starseed population. But there can't be multiple Enlils, there can't be multiple Enkis. There has to be a rational explanation for this. Now there's a couple of options here. These could be memories that are implanted, which they're often referred to as screen memories. They could also be a combination of that, and then some people can actually have real memories that were from a timeline consciousness simulation. This is just a theory I'm throwing out there because I can't get this information. When I asked about this, I was told that it's not up to me to tell people what they're remembering. It's up to them to figure it out themselves. And it's wrong for me to assume that these memories are false, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it open, because that's no different than somebody telling me that my extraterrestrial memories of my family and my home planet are screen memories and are completely false. I wouldn't want to hear that, and I know that none of these other people want to hear it as well, because it's a very personal part of their awakening. But really, is it true? That's the big question. So I'm going to leave that up to the viewers, but what I want people to understand is that there's so much to the extraterrestrial phenomenon and the phenomenon of contactees and abductees that researchers are completely ignoring. Most researchers wouldn't even touch something like this. And that's unfortunate, because we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need to get to the truth. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to have a lot more videos. I do apologize for the length of time between videos. I've been really, really sick with heart problems. I've got hormonal issues. I've got diabetes. I've got a series of overlapping health conditions. So when you don't see me put out a video for a week or more, it's because I'm sick. I spent 4 days in bed thanks to an adverse reaction to a particular drug that I was given. So anyway, I'll see you guys soon. There's a lot of great videos coming up, and I've got one coming up on the planetary consciousness simulation, and that should be a fascinating view. So take care and have a great day.